Good evening and welcome. I am your host, Mr Addams. Tonight's video, I shall be reading some replies to the askreddit question, what are some seemingly normal images with disturbing backgrounds? Let's begin. This father and daughter photo. The man in the photo, Franklin Floyd, had married a woman and had custody over her children while she was in prison for 30 days. The girl in the photo is one of the children, whom Floyd decided to kidnap to start a new life with, leaving behind her siblings, 2 who went into care and 1 an infant who has never been found. The photo was taken shortly after moving, claiming her as his biological daughter, and changing their names. He later went on to marry her. It's a rabbit hole in itself, involving other abductions, murders, kidnappings and so on. Floyd is a disturbing individual, and the photo is so eerie with the story it has. This was from a case in Denmark a couple of years ago. The woman was a Swedish journalist who was invited by the man to come with him in his home-built submarine. This was one of the last pictures of her before he brutally killed her and dumped her mutilated body in different places under the water to hide it. A crazy man with a disturbed mind. This picture of Russian ambassador to Turkey, Andrei Karlov, standing in an art gallery about to do a conference. Moments later, the man in the background will assassinate him. This picture was taken by the crew of a ship who saw this girl, 11 years old, floating on a disintegrating float. Her family was murdered on a sailboat by their hired captain, who left her to drown with the sinking boat. She drifted for 4 days, no water, no food, being burned by the sun. Upon hearing that she had survived, the captain killed himself. In this photograph we see 3 girls smiling together in a selfie. However, the light on the right hand side of the photo is the headlights of a train that hits them moments later. In this photo, it looks like it's a cop sitting back chilling. It is in fact a fake cop, who, when the photo was taken, had just been arrested for killing 77 people, among them approximately 60 kids and teenagers, and injuring around 250 people. He set off a bomb in the city that killed 8 people, and then went onto an island where a youth camp was held. He just started shooting. They were trapped on the island and had to swim to get off. Kids who didn't know who was shooting came to him for safety because he was dressed as a cop, and he shot them as well. The man dressed as Santa Claus in this picture is Bruce MacArthur. He was a landscaper for most of the year and worked as a mall Santa during the holiday season between 2010 and 2017. He would lure men to meet up via a dating app, murder them and spread their remains among planter boxes at properties he managed. He was found guilty of 8 counts of first-degree murder and is serving life in prison. In this next picture, the guy with the sword was dressed up as Darth Vader, which caused 2 students to take the picture with him. Little did they know that Darth Vader in the picture, Anton Pettersson, would go on to kill a teacher and students with the sword he'd brought. The guy picked his victims based on their skin colour. During his rampage, he was yelling, "I am your father." The whole thing happened in Sweden. This is Sarah Funk, a YouTuber vlogging her trip to Cyprus's red light. In the picture, there is a suitcase floating in the water. Inside the suitcase, 2 years later, it is going to be revealed to have the corpse of a 12-year-old girl who was murdered by a serial killer. A 17-year-old male went missing on the morning of February 27th. This photo is one of a few photos the teen had texted his family members during his hike, and after extensively studying the picture, they noticed a man in one of them. The family is now asking for the public's assistance in identifying the man in the photo. This is a photo of John List and his family. In 1971, he shot and killed his mother, wife and children in their New Jersey home. Earlier in the year, he lost his job and was unable to provide the abundant lifestyle he and his family were accustomed to. This was an abject failure in his eyes. He hid the loss for his job from his family. He attempted to secure employment, but nothing measured up to his previous salary. So, he remained unemployed and continued leaving his home as if he was going to work, while skimming his mother's accounts to cover the finances. Once they started to run dry, his only logical next step was to kill them. In his mind, going on welfare would have been too humiliating, so he instead opted to send their souls to heaven. He methodically murdered each family member one by one, moving their bodies to the same room, then cleaned each scene. He cancelled deliveries, notified the children's teachers they were going on vacation, and cleared out what little was left in the bank. He even went so far as to cut himself out of the family photos so as not to leave any account of himself behind. He spent one last night in the home and left the next morning, lights on and organ music blaring through the house's intercom system. Due to the family's reclusive nature, the bodies of the List family weren't discovered for a month. By then, List was gone. He managed to evade authorities for 18 years. It wasn't until prosecutors commissioned an excellent forensic artist to produce a physical bust of List with age progression that he was caught. A neighbour of List recognised him and contacted authorities. He was living under an assumed identity in Colorado. He had gained employment as an accountant and was remarried. List was sentenced to 5 terms of life imprisonment. When asked why he didn't kill himself as well, he replied suicide was a sin and he wanted to be reunited with his family in heaven. He died in custody due to complications of pneumonia in 2008. The kicker? The List home was a mansion. The room the bodies were placed in was a ballroom. Directly above the bodies of the family in the ballroom was a Tiffany skylight worth $100,000. At the time of the killings, more than enough money to have recovered List and his family from financial ruin. The girl in the red sweater in the background lost her footing moments after this picture was taken and fell into Niagara Falls. This picture taken of David A. Johnson 13 hours before the eruption of Mount St Helens in 1980. His last words were over radio, "Vancouver, Vancouver, this is it," before going silent, and his remains were never found. This is the last picture taken of 18-year-old Jolie Callan by her ex-boyfriend before he shot her twice in the head and pushed her body off the cliff. In this picture we see a young woman holding a dog and crouching on the ground on Saddleworth Moor in northern England. That is Myra Hindley, and the picture was taken by Ian Brady. Together they tortured and murdered 6 children in the 1960s before burying them on the moors near Manchester. In the picture, she's crouching and staring at the grave of 12-year-old John Kilbride. I have been your host, Mr Addams. Good night.